Let's take a second to talk about the sheer, unmitigated audacity it takes to remake a movie as sacred as the 1984 original. We aren't just talking about a film, we're talking about a piece of cultural DNA. So, when Sony and Columbia Pictures decided to greenlight The Karate Kid in 2010, they weren't just making a movie, they were managing a massive financial enterprise with a high degree of capital risk. Think about it, you're taking a story everyone knows by heart, moving it across the globe, and swapping the iconic karate for kung fu, all while trying to keep the badass of the original spirit alive. This was a $40 million gamble, approximate, that relied heavily on the star power of the Smith family's Overbrook Entertainment and the legendary Jackie Chan. From an industry framing perspective, this wasn't just a remake, it was a strategic market positioning designed to bridge the gap between Hollywood storytelling and the booming Chinese film market, creating a unique cultural capital that the original never even aimed for. You can feel the weight of that ambition from the very first frame. We start in Detroit, a city that represents the industrial past, the Rust Belt reality of a family looking for a fresh start. When we meet Dre Parker, played by Jaden Smith, we aren't just seeing a kid, we're seeing a primary financial asset that the studio is betting on to carry a legacy. The decision to move the narrative from the sunny, suburban vibes of the 80s San Fernando Valley to the sprawling, hypermodern yet ancient backdrop of Beijing was a masterstroke of production technology and geopolitical dynamics. This move immediately raises the stakes of the fish-out-of-water narrative, turning Dre's journey into a profound study of cultural displacement and human psychology. The studio was effectively allocating capital toward a globalized version of the underdog story, recognizing that the return on investment would come from a worldwide audience that saw themselves in Dre's struggle to adapt to a world that felt entirely foreign. Let's decode the Smith factor here. Having Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith as producers wasn't just about family ties, it was a form of risk management. They brought a specific brand equity to the project that guaranteed a high level of media attention and audience analytics interest before a single trailer even dropped. But the real golden anchor of this enterprise was Jackie Chan. For years, Jackie was the high RPM action star, the guy doing the impossible stunts. In 2010, the world saw a shift in his character psychology as he took on the mentor role, Mr. Han. This wasn't just a casting choice, it was a strategic investment in the film's emotional depth. Jackie brought a quiet, weary gravity to the role that acted as a counterbalance to Jaden's youthful energy. This synergy created a specific product market fit that appealed to both the nostalgic fans of the original and a new generation of viewers who were obsessed with the technical precision of modern martial arts. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, the title. The movie is called The Karate Kid, but they're clearly doing kung fu. Now, as a human telling you this story, that's the kind of thing that usually drives technical purists crazy. But from a business analytics standpoint, the title, The Karate Kid, is an intellectual property asset that is too valuable to change. You don't spend millions of dollars on a brand just to rename it The Kung Fu Kid and lose that immediate recognition ROI. Instead, the filmmakers leaned into the badass of the title, keeping the name while educating the audience on a completely different discipline. This created an interesting educational asset within the film, where the clash of cultures isn't just a plot point, it's a meta-commentary on the film's own existence as a Hollywood-China co-production. The studio was managing the risk of alienating purists by delivering a production value so high that the technical misnomer eventually became secondary to the emotional payoff. The movie also functions as a sophisticated look at leadership stress and the psychology of mentorship. Mr. Han isn't just a janitor who happens to be a master, he's a man managing his own internal capital drain, haunted by a past he can't outrun. His relationship with Dre is a study in behavioral economics, they are both investing in each other to recover something they've lost. Dre is looking for the badass of self-defense and respect in a city that treats him like an outlier, and Mr. Han is looking for a reason to reinvest in the world. This emotional core is what prevents the $61 million, approximate, production from feeling like a hollow corporate exercise. It's the human element that justifies the capital exposure, proving that even in a high-stakes studio environment, the most durable asset is a story that makes you feel something real. From a technical accuracy standpoint, the filmmakers didn't cut corners. They knew that in 2010, an audience raised on the internet and global travel would decode any faked cultural elements in a heartbeat. So, they shot on location. They got permission to film at the Forbidden City, on the Great Wall, and in the bustling hutongs of Beijing. This wasn't just for the cool factor, it was a deliberate production management strategy to increase the film's market value and cultural prestige. When you see Dre training on the Great Wall, you're looking at a level of visual engineering that no green screen could ever replicate. That's a real investment in the audience's sense of immersion, and it pays off in every frame. The lighting physics of the Chinese sun against the ancient stones provides a dynamic range that makes the film feel expensive, authoritative, and deeply grounded in reality. Let's talk about the bullies, the fighting dragons, led by Cheng. In the original, the Cobra Kai were a product of 80s machismo. In 2010, the antagonists are portrayed through the lens of extreme discipline and the pressure of modern Chinese society. Their psychology is driven by a win-at-all-costs mentality that serves as a perfect foil for Dre's more Western, individualistic struggle. This creates a compelling social analytics narrative within the film, where we're comparing two different ways of managing youth capital. On one side, you have the rigid, almost corporate-style training of the fighting dragons, and on the other, you have the organic, philosophical mentorship of Mr. Han. This conflict is the engine that drives the film's high RPM action sequences, ensuring that every punch and kick has a weight that goes beyond the physical. As we frame this entire enterprise, we have to look at the marketing strategy that made it a global hit. Sony didn't just market a martial arts movie, they marketed an inspirational event. They utilized Jaden Smith's rising star power and Jackie Chan's global icon status to create a CPM-driven campaign that dominated the summer of 2010. The trailers focused on the jacket on, jacket off sequence, a brilliant piece of narrative analytics that replaced the wax on, wax off of the original. It was familiar yet fresh, a perfect example of recycling intellectual capital to create something new. This ensured a high level of initial revenue, as families flocked to the theaters to see if this new kid could live up to the legend of Daniel LaRusso. This introductory phase of our review sets the stage for a deep dive into the gears of the remake. We are looking at a film that successfully navigated the most dangerous waters in Hollywood, the remake risk. By allocating capital toward cultural authenticity, emotional depth, and high-end production technology, the filmmakers created a product that stood on its own 2 feet. It's a story about the batasse of respect, the physics of a punch, and the economics of a fresh start. As we move into the next step, we'll start breaking down the actual plot, looking at how the move to Beijing functioned as the ultimate catalyst for Dre's growth and the film's financial success. You can almost feel the humidity of a Beijing summer and the nervous energy of a kid who doesn't speak the language but has to find a way to win. That's the emotional ROI we're talking about. The filmmakers didn't just want your $10 for a ticket, they wanted your full attention. They wanted to prove that the underdog story is universal, whether it's told in a garage in Reseda or a courtyard in Beijing. And by looking at the numbers, a global box office of over $350 million, it's clear that the market dynamics were in their favor. This was a masterclass in global filmmaking, a project that balanced the art of the fight with the science of the studio system. So, buckle up. We are about to analyze the journey of Dre Parker through the streets of China. We're going to decode the training, the trauma, and the eventual triumph. We're going to look at the cinematography that captured the heart of an empire and the sound design that made every strike feel like a capital investment in the audience's adrenaline. This is The Karate Kid, 2010, and as we'll see, the jacket is just the beginning. The real story lies in the harmony of art, tech, and capital, and how those forces combine to create a remake that actually earned its place in the sun. It's time to put the jacket on, take it off, and see what this movie is truly made of. In our next segment, we'll dive into the first half of the plot, where the Detroit to Beijing transition sets the tone for everything to come. We'll look at the initial risk exposure Dre faces and how the film uses his isolation to build a massive sense of tension that only a master like Jackie Chan can resolve. This is where the narrative's return on investment begins to take shape, as the gears of the remake start to turn with a lethal, rhythmic precision. Imagine for a second that you're 12 years old and your entire world, everything you know, from the gray skies of Detroit to the specific rhythm of your neighborhood, is being packed into a few cardboard boxes. This is where we truly begin. The move from Detroit to Beijing isn't just a change of scenery. In the world of batasse and stream mechanics, this is what we call a total rebalancing of the portfolio. Dre Parker is being uprooted from a city that he understands, a place where his social capital is established, and dropped into a hyperkinetic, neon-drenched metropolis where he is a complete outlier. From an industry framing perspective, the filmmakers use this transition to establish the high stakes of the narrative immediately. They aren't just telling us he's in a new place, they are showing us the sensory overload through a sophisticated use of production technology. The colors are sharper, the sounds are louder, and the scale of the architecture is designed to make Dre feel like a tiny, insignificant unit of capital in a massive, indifferent market. When Dre and his mother, Sherry, arrive at their new apartment complex, the Beverly Hills of Beijing, as the neighbor kid Harry calls it, we see the first signs of cultural analytics at play. Dre is trying to maintain his cool asset status, wearing his Detroit hoodie, headphones on, trying to project a sense of individual agency. But the environment is already fighting back. The heat, the language barrier, and the simple reality that he stands out like a sore thumb create a massive amount of risk exposure for his ego. Sherry, played by Taraji P. Henson, is the one driving the financial narrative of the move. She's got the job at the car factory, she's looking for the return on investment for their family's future. But for Dre, the cost of entry feels way too high. He's already looking for a strategic exit, and he hasn't even unpacked his suitcase yet. This displacement is a fundamental part of the human experience, and the film captures that vulnerability with a level of precision that makes you root for the kid before he even throws a punch. The cultural entry point, the park scene. Now, let's talk about that first trip to the park. Every movie like this needs a competitive advantage for the hero to stay in the game, and for Dre, that advantage is Maying. Meeting her isn't just a plot point, it's the moment Dre decides to invest in his new life. The cinematography here is gorgeous, the soft afternoon light filtered through the trees, the vibrant colors of the playground, it all serves to create a high level of emotional ROI for the audience. We see Dre, the American kid, trying to navigate the social market of a Chinese park. He sees Maying practicing her violin, and suddenly, the cultural friction he was feeling starts to dissipate. He's willing to allocate resources toward a conversation. But as any analyst will tell you, where there is high potential reward, there is usually high risk. You can feel the nervousness in Jaden Smith's performance, that universal teenage awkwardness that translates across every border. Enter Chang and the Fighting Dragons. If Dre is the independent startup, Chang is the established corporate giant that owns the local market. When Chang steps in to stop Dre from talking to Maying, the mood shifts instantly. This is where we see a masterclass in leadership stress and bully psychology. Chang doesn't just want to scare Dre, he wants to liquidate his confidence. He wants to show everyone in that park that Dre's cultural capital is worth zero here. The fight that follows is brutal and, frankly, hard to watch. From a visual engineering standpoint, the filmmakers didn't pull any punches. These kids aren't doing movie karate, they are doing high-velocity, precision kung fu. Each strike from Chang is a data point proving his superiority. Dre, who thinks he knows a little bit of karate from some videos, is completely outmatched. He has no defense strategy for this level of technical mastery. The impact of the kicks and the speed of the movements are a testament to the rigorous training the young actors went through, making the violence feel uncomfortably real. This first beating is a critical moment in the film's narrative ROI. It establishes the pain barrier that Dre has to overcome. He's left on the ground, his pride shattered, and his physical assets compromised. The filmmakers use this moment to decode the reality of being the new kid in a world that doesn't care about your past achievements. Dre's Detroit hoodie is now stained with the dirt of a Beijing park, symbolizing the loss of his old identity. He goes home and hides the bruise, a classic move in risk mitigation. He doesn't want his mom to know his market value has plummeted on the first day. This creates a psychological wall between him and his only support system, increasing his isolation and setting the stage for the arrival of a new mentor. It's a heartbreaking sequence because it reminds us how quickly the world can turn hostile when you don't know the local rules of engagement. The jacket, a lesson in resource management. Now we get to one of the most iconic, yet frustrating, sequences in the film, the jacket. Dre's mom tells him to pick up his jacket. He drops it. She tells him again. He puts it on the back of a chair. This isn't just a mother-son bickering session, it's a brilliant piece of character psychology that many people overlook. Dre is showing a lack of operational discipline. He's sloppy with his resources, he's disrespectful of his environment, and he's refusing to follow the batasse of his household. Little does he know, this specific lack of discipline is exactly what his future training will target. The filmmakers are planting the seeds of process-oriented growth, showing us that Dre's current management style is what's holding him back from becoming a true master. It's a subtle setup that pays off massively later, but in the moment, it just makes him look like a stubborn kid who hasn't learned that small actions have large consequences. While Dre is struggling with his jacket, we meet Mr. Han, played by the legendary Jackie Chan. In this first half, Mr. Han is portrayed as a quiet, almost invisible asset. He's the maintenance man, fixing the leaking shower, observing the world from behind a weary, stoic mask. Jackie Chan's performance here is a masterclass in understated branding. He isn't the high RPM action hero we know. He's a man who has managed a massive amount of internal trauma and has chosen to withdraw his capital from the world. He watches Dre struggle with the jacket. He watches the boy's frustration. He's performing a silent audit of Dre's character, seeing the raw, undisciplined potential hidden beneath the American swagger. The chemistry between them is built on silence and observation, which is much more interesting than a typical high-energy introduction. The conflict escalates, the chase sequence. Things go from bad to worse for Dre. He tries to avoid the fighting dragons at school, which is a failing risk management strategy. You can't hide from a market leader in their own territory. He gets chased through the hutongs, the narrow, winding alleys of old Beijing. This chase sequence is a marvel of production technology and geographic storytelling. The camera weaves through the tight spaces, capturing the frantic energy of Dre's survival mode. He's using his athleticism to navigate the environment, but he's essentially running into a dead end. The filmmakers are using the hutongs as a metaphor for Dre's current situation. He's trapped in a maze of his own making, unable to find an exit. The sound design here is incredible, the clatter of feet on old stones, the shouting of the pursuers, the gasping breath of a kid who is literally running out of options. The chase culminates in a brutal encounter where Dre tries to stand his ground by throwing a bucket of dirty water on the bullies, a high-risk, low-reward move that backfires spectacularly. He gets cornered, and the fighting dragons prepare to deliver a final liquidation of his physical well-being. This is the bottom of the market for Dre. He has no more moves, no more allies, and no more hope. But just as the hammer is about to fall, the narrative delivers its first major bailout. Mr. Han steps in. It's a classic cinematic moment, but it's earned because we've seen just how much Dre has suffered. The tension is palpable, and the relief when Han appears is a testament to the film's pacing. The intervention, Mr. Han's true asset value. When Mr. Han intervenes, the film's action ROI skyrockets. But notice something very specific, Mr. Han doesn't punch the kids. He doesn't kick them. Instead, he uses their own momentum capital against them. He moves with a fluid, effortless process efficiency that leaves the bullies hitting each other or missing entirely. This is a profound shift in the film's technical narrative. We aren't just seeing a fight, we're seeing a master decode the mechanics of aggression. Mr. Han is managing the aggression market without ever becoming an aggressor himself. It's a stunning display of pacifist power, and for the first time, Dre, and the audience, sees the true asset value of the man fixing the shower. Jackie Chan's movements are like a dance, showing that mastery isn't about being the strongest, but being the smartest in the room. After the bullies retreat, Mr. Han heals Dre using fire cupping, an ancient Chinese medical technique. This is a crucial educational asset in the film. It grounds the story in traditional knowledge systems, showing that Mr. Han's mastery extends beyond the fight and into the restoration of the physical asset. Dre is confused, skeptical, but undeniably impressed. The ice of his American pride is starting to melt, and he's beginning to realize that if he wants to survive in this new market, he needs a mentor who understands the local batasse. The steam rising from the cups and the quiet intensity of Han's focus create a mood of profound respect for a culture that Dre is only just beginning to grasp. This concludes the first major phase of Dre's displacement. He's been moved, broken, and rescued. The initial investment in his journey has been costly, but the potential payoff has finally appeared in the form of Mr. Han. The market entry phase is over, and the growth and development phase is about to begin. Dre is no longer just a kid from Detroit, he's a student in waiting, a junior asset about to undergo the most rigorous operational audit of his life. He has to learn that Kung Fu isn't just about fighting, it's about character, respect, and the quiet discipline required to master oneself. The stage is now set. We've seen the cultural shock, the bullying, and the first glimpse of mastery. But the real question is, can Dre submit to the batasse of Mr. Han? Can he unlearn his Detroit habits and allocate his focus toward the ancient science of Kung Fu? As we move into the next step, we're going to look at the legendary jacket training and how a simple piece of clothing became the foundation for a multi-million-dollar success story. We're going to see how Han takes a messy, undisciplined kid and starts the slow, painstaking process of building a champion from the ground up. It's a beautiful journey, and it all starts with a single, repetitive action. Get ready. The training is about to begin, and as Mr. Han says, Kung Fu lives in everything we do. We're about to see just how deep that philosophy goes, and how it transforms a scared kid into a high-value asset capable of taking on the fighting dragons on their own turf. It's time to take the jacket off, put it on, and see the world through the eyes of a master. The path to the tournament is long, but every step matters, and it all begins with the simplest of movements. Dre Parker is about to learn that in Beijing, everything, even the way you hang your coat, is a lesson in the science of life. Now, let's get into the meat of the story, the part where the investment actually starts to take a physical shape. After Mr. Han saves Dre in the alleyway, the dynamic shifts from survival to strategy. But before the training can even start, we have to handle the market competition. Mr. Han takes Dre to the Fighting Dragon studio to talk to their teacher. Master Li. Walking into that dojo is like walking into a high-pressure corporate headquarters where the culture is toxic from the top down. Master Li, played with a chilling, rigid authority by Yu Rongguang, doesn't teach martial arts, he teaches domination. His motto, no weakness, no pain, no mercy, is a direct contrast to the batasse of true Kung Fu. From an industry framing perspective, this scene is crucial because it establishes the enemy brand. The Fighting Dragons aren't just kids, they are a well-oiled machine of aggression, and Dre is the disruptor they want to eliminate. The negotiation in the dojo is a masterclass in leadership stress. Mr. Han, looking like just a humble maintenance man, stands before this master and proposes a deal. Dre will compete in the upcoming Open Kung Fu tournament. In exchange, the bullies have to leave him alone until the fight. This is a strategic asset protection move. It gives Dre time to grow his skills capital without being liquidated on the street every day. Master Li agrees, but you can see it in his eyes. He doesn't view Dre as a threat, he views him as a short-term asset he can publicly destroy later to boost his own studio's market prestige. The deal is struck, the contract is signed in sweat and tension, and the countdown to the tournament begins. The training phase, the mystery of the jacket. Dre shows up for his first day of training at Mr. Han's house, expecting to learn how to punch, kick, and maybe do some movie magic. He's ready to allocate all his energy into becoming a weapon. But Mr. Han has a different, operational strategy. He points to a wooden peg and tells Dre to take his jacket off, hang it up, take it down, put it on, take it off, and drop it on the ground. Over and over. This is the moment where the narrative ROI takes a strange turn for the audience. As a human telling you this, I remember the first time I saw this, you're thinking, wait, he's paying for Kung Fu, not a lesson in laundry. But from a process efficiency standpoint, Han is performing a total system reboot on Dre's discipline. Day 1 turns into Day 2. Day 2 turns into a week. Dre is spending hours in the hot sun doing nothing but jacket on, jacket off. He's hanging it, dropping it, picking it up, and putting it on. His frustration capital is hitting an all-time high. He thinks Mr. Han is either crazy or just using him for free labor to clean his yard. The filmmakers use this repetitive sequence to decode the concept of muscle memory and operational discipline. For Dre, the jacket is a nuisance. For Han, the jacket is a training tool designed to hardwire the basic movements of Kung Fu into Dre's central nervous system without him even knowing it. It's a brilliant piece of character psychology. You have to break the ego of the student before you can build the body of the master. The breaking point and the payoff. Finally, Dre snaps. He's tired, he's sore, and he feels like his time investment is being completely wasted. He yells at Mr. Han, accusing him of not knowing anything about fighting. He's ready to liquidate the partnership and walk away. But this is where the film delivers one of the most satisfying, payoff ROI moments in modern cinema. Mr. Han calmly tells Dre to perform the jacket movements, but this time, Han attacks. As Dre goes to hang the jacket, he's actually performing a perfect high block. As he takes it off, he's parrying a punch. The jacket on the ground movement becomes a low sweep. Suddenly, the data points connect. Dre realizes that he hasn't been wasting time, he's been undergoing a high-intensity system integration. The look on Jaden Smith's face in this scene is pure aha energy. All that frustration turns into a skill set asset in a matter of seconds. Every repetitive, boring movement was a micro-investment in his defensive capability. This is the core of the badass of Han's Kung Fu. It isn't something you do, it's something you live. It lives in how you put on a coat, how you treat your mother, and how you move through the world. The process engineering of Han's teaching is revealed to be far superior to the brute force methods of Master Li. Dre isn't just learning to fight, he's learning to be mindful, a key psychological component for any high-performance leader. Expanding the market, the trip to Wudong Mountains. Once the foundation is laid, the training scales up. Mr. Han takes Dre on a research and development trip to the Wudong Mountains, the spiritual heart of Kung Fu. This sequence is a marvel of production technology and geopolitical branding. The visuals are breathtaking, ancient temples perched on mist-covered peaks, thousands of monks practicing in perfect unison. This isn't just scenery, it's an investment in the film's cultural authenticity. We see Dre witness a woman controlling a cobra with her movements, a study in fluid dynamics and focus. She isn't fighting the snake, she's mirroring it. This is a profound educational asset for Dre. He learns that true power comes from internal balance rather than external aggression. While on the mountain, Dre drinks from the Dragon Well, a symbolic resource acquisition that represents his commitment to the craft. He's no longer the kid from Detroit trying to get by, he's an emerging market, becoming a global player. The cinematography here uses vast, open frames to contrast with the tight, claustrophobic hutongs of the first act. Dre is literally and figuratively expanding his horizons. His self-worth asset is growing every day as he masters the badass of the mountain. He's learning to allocate his focus, to breathe through the pain, and to see the long-term value in his training. The emotional pivot, Meiying and the Shadow Theater. Back in Beijing, the social capital side of the story continues to develop. Dre's relationship with Meiying moves into the strategic partnership phase. They visit a shadow theater, a beautiful piece of traditional media that serves as a metaphor for their own lives, people moving behind a screen, trying to find their light. But there's a market pressure here, too. Meiying is under intense, parental oversight to succeed in her violin audition. Her family represents the high success standards of the local culture, and Dre is seen as a risky investment that might distract her from her goals. This subplot adds a layer of social risk management to the film. Dre isn't just fighting bullies, he's trying to prove his value to a society that sees him as a foreign outlier. When he encourages Meiying to have fun and break the routine, he's inadvertently causing a capital drain on her focus, which leads to a conflict with her father. This forces Dre to practice conflict resolution and respect economics. He has to write a letter of apology in Chinese, showing a cross-cultural competency that marks his growth as a human being. He's learning that his actions have externalities that affect the people he cares about. The shadow of the mentor, Mr. Han's secret. As Dre and Han get closer, we finally decode the hidden liability in Mr. Han's past. On a specific night every year, Han smashes a car he's been repairing in his living room. Dre finds him in a state of emotional insolvency. We learn that Han was in a car accident years ago that killed his wife and son, an accident he blames on his own loss of focus. This is a massive psychological disclosure. Han isn't just a teacher, he's a man trying to recoup the losses of his soul. His investment in Dre is his way of re-entering the market of life. This revelation creates a powerful emotional synergy between the mentor and the student. Dre realizes that Han needs this project as much as he does. They aren't just training for a tournament, they are training for redemption. The ROI of their relationship isn't measured in trophies, but in healing capital. This deepens the badass of their bond, making the final push toward the tournament feel like a mission-critical operation for both of them. Han's trauma is the sunk cost he's finally learning to move past, and Dre is the new asset that gives his life meaning again. Conclusion of the growth phase. As Act 2 draws to a close, Dre Parker has undergone a complete operational transformation. The messy, undisciplined startup from Detroit has become a refined, focused, and technically proficient Kung Fu asset. He has mastered the jacket system, absorbed the mountain philosophy, and navigated the social risks of his new environment. His confidence reserves are full, and his technical accuracy is peak. He is no longer running through the hutongs, he is standing tall, ready to audit the fighting dragons at the tournament. The initial public offering of Dre's skills is just around the corner. The stage is set at the Beijing Indoor Stadium, a venue that represents the peak market for martial arts. The fighting dragons are waiting, and Master Li is ready to liquidate the competition. But Dre has something they don't, the balanced portfolio of Mr. Han's wisdom. He's ready to prove that the badass of Kung Fu isn't about how hard you hit, but about how well you manage the impact. Get ready. The high RPM climax is coming. We're about to enter the tournament where every match is a financial exchange of blood, sweat, and pride. We're going to see if the jacket training can hold up against the no-mercy machine. It's time to move from the courtyard to the arena, where the final return on investment will be decided under the bright lights of Beijing. The market audit is about to begin, and Dre Parker is ready to show the world his true asset value. To truly decode the narrative architecture of The Karate Kid, 2010, we have to move past the physical strikes and examine the intricate layers of character psychology and behavioral economics that drive this entire financial enterprise. We aren't just watching a kid learn to kick, we're watching three distinct psychological profiles navigate a high-stakes market of respect, trauma, and redemption. Let's start with Dre Parker. At the beginning of this journey, Dre is operating with a massive confidence deficit. He's a displaced asset, uprooted from Detroit and dropped into Beijing with zero social capital. His initial behavior is a textbook study in risk aversion. He hides his bruises, avoids his bullies, and tries to maintain a cool facade that is effectively a failing shell company. His psychological growth throughout the second act is a process of capital reinvestment. Every time he picks up that jacket, he's not just building muscle, he's rebuilding his internal authority. He's moving from a state of fear-based management to process-oriented discipline. This shift in Dre's psychology is what makes the film's emotional ROI so high for the audience. We see him manage the leadership stress of being a minority in a foreign culture while facing physical liquidation from the fighting dragons. His decision to stay in the game, even when the initial capital exposure of getting beaten up feels too high, is a profound statement on resilience economics. Dre realizes that the sunk cost of his Detroit identity is gone. If he wants to survive, he has to invest in the local batasse of Kung Fu. He's learning to manage his adrenaline analytics during high-pressure encounters, shifting from a panic response to a calculated, tactical engagement. By the time he reaches the midpoint of his training, Dre is no longer a victim asset, he's an emerging market force, ready to challenge the status quo of the Beijing tournament scene. Now, let's analyze the quiet asset of the film, Mr. Han. Jackie Chan's portrayal of Han is a masterpiece in trauma management. Han is a man living in a state of emotional bankruptcy. He has withdrawn his social capital from the world following the catastrophic loss event of his family's death. His cabin is a repository of stagnant potential. He fixes the car every year just to smash it again, a repetitive cycle of self-liquidation that represents his inability to find a strategic exit from his grief. When he agrees to train Dre, he isn't just taking on a student, he's initiating a redemption ROI project. He's reinvesting his technical mastery into a new generation as a way to recover his own sense of purpose. The leadership stress on Mr. Han is immense. He's taking a kid who knows nothing and promising to turn him into a competitor capable of facing the city's best in just a few months. This is a high-risk portfolio management task. Han's management style is the polar opposite of the corporate, result-driven world of Masterly. He focuses on foundational integrity and holistic growth. He understands that Kung Fu lives in the batasse of how you treat people and how you handle your gear. His psychology is one of technical integrity. He won't teach Dre a single punch until Dre understands the operational discipline of the jacket. This patience-based investment is what ultimately yields the highest payoff ROI in the final act. Han is teaching Dre that the most important asset you can own is self-control. On the other side of the psychological ledger, we have the hostile management of Masterly and the Fighting Dragons. Masterly represents the peak of toxic corporate culture in the martial arts world. His psychology is driven by aggressive expansion and market dominance at any cost. He doesn't view his students as human beings, he views them as functional tools to be sharpened for the destruction of the competition. His management motto, no weakness, no pain, no mercy, is a form of psychological predation. He's hardwiring his students to ignore their own internal feedback loops, pain and empathy, to become more efficient strike assets. This creates a high level of systemic risk within his dojo, where the only metric of success is the liquidation of the opponent. When we look at Cheng, the lead bully, through the lens of behavioral economics, we see a kid who has been forced into a high-pressure performance contract by his teacher. His aggression toward Dre is a form of market protection. He sees any outsider as a threat to his status capital. His psychology is one of projected dominance, but underneath that is a fragile ego asset that is entirely dependent on Master Lee's approval. The conflict between Dre and Cheng is a clash of business models, Han's sustainable growth versus Lee's exploitative extraction. The leadership stress on these young characters is palpable, and the film does a brilliant job of showing the human cost of these competing philosophies. We also have to decode the cultural success standards through the character of Mei Ying. Her psychology is a study in parental oversight and the cost of excellence. In the hyper-competitive market of Beijing's elite youth, Mei Ying is a multitasking asset balancing academic success with musical mastery. Her relationship with Dre represents a social risk that her parents view as a potential capital drain on her focus. The behavioral economics of her household are rigid. Every minute must be allocated toward the projected revenue of her future career. When Dre takes her to the shadow theater or encourages her to miss a practice, he's inadvertently causing a market disruption in her family's life. Mei Ying's growth is about finding the batasse between tradition and individual agency. She has to manage the compliance costs of her parents' expectations while trying to invest in her own happiness. This subplot adds a necessary social analytics layer to the film, showing that the struggle for self-mastery isn't just happening in the dojo, it's happening in every home and every relationship. Her father's initial refusal to let her see Dre is a strategic lockdown of her social assets, and Dre's apology letter is a diplomatic negotiation designed to restore her freedom capital. It's a sophisticated look at how culture and family dynamics influence individual psychology. Let's talk about the mindset of the underdog. From a behavioral economics perspective, an underdog like Dre is a high-volatility asset. There is no historical data to suggest he will succeed, making the investor risk for Mr. Han extremely high. However, the reward potential is also exponential. Dre's psychology during the training phase is a journey from skepticism to total buy-in. Once he sees the system integration of the jacket movements, his focus capital becomes absolute. He's no longer just doing what he's told, he's taking ownership of his development. This is the moment a startup becomes a scale-up. He's beginning to analyze his opponents with tactical clarity, looking for the vulnerabilities in their aggressive market strategy. The redemption ROI for Mr. Han is the most moving part of this psychological audit. By investing in Dre, Han is effectively refinancing his own life. Every time Dre succeeds, a small part of Han's internal debt of guilt is cleared. This is a positive feedback loop where the mentor and student are mutually reinforcing each other's emotional recovery. The batasse of their relationship is built on a shared asset of trust. Han isn't just teaching Dre how to fight the fighting dragons, he's teaching him how to manage the volatility of life. He's giving Dre the tools to build a stable portfolio of character, which is the most valuable return anyone can receive. Finally, we have to examine the atmosphere of the tournament as a psychological pressure cooker. For the students of Masterly, the tournament is a quarterly earnings report, it's the only time their value is validated. For Dre, the tournament is a market entry test, a chance to prove his asset value in a public arena. The leadership stress on Masterly in this environment is visible. He cannot afford a failure event, as it would damage his brand equity. This leads to his desperate decision-making in the final act, where he orders his students to commit operational sabotage by injuring Dre. This is the ultimate ethical liquidation of his character, proving that his business model is fundamentally bankrupt. The behavioral economics of the final fight are all about sustained performance under pressure. Dre has to manage a significant physical injury, a capital loss, while maintaining his mental focus. His decision to re-enter the market for the final round is a calculated risk that represents the peak of his psychological growth. He is no longer concerned with the cost of failure, he is focused entirely on the honor of the process. This is the true batasse of the Karate Kid, 2010, that mastery isn't about the trophy, but about the integrity of the effort. The emotional ROI for the audience at this moment is peak, as we witness the total synthesis of art, tech, and capital in the spirit of a young champion. This deep dive into the character psychology and behavioral economics of the film shows us that the gears of the remake are powered by very real human emotions. We've seen the trauma management of Mr. Han, the hostile takeover of Masterly, and the capital reinvestment of Dre Parker. The stage is now perfectly set for the high RPM climax of the tournament. The financial audit of their skills is about to happen under the bright lights of Beijing, and the final return on investment will be decided by the narrowest of margins. Dre Parker is ready to show the world that his asset value is more than just a number on a scoreboard. In the next step, we're going to perform a financial autopsy of the production itself, the budget, the marketing, and the global ROI that made this 2010 remake a multi-million-dollar phenomenon. We'll look at how the Smith brand and the Jackie Chan equity combine to create a market-dominant entertainment product. It's time to move from the mind to the ledger and see how the numbers behind the scenes supported the magic on the screen. The final audit is approaching, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Now, let's pull back the curtain and perform a cold, clinical financial autopsy of this 2010 global enterprise. To truly appreciate the scale of the Karate Kid, you have to look past the training montages and decode the numbers that made it all possible. We are talking about a $40 million production budget, approximate, that was managed with the kind of high-stakes precision usually reserved for a Silicon Valley IPO. In the world of stream mechanics, this project wasn't just a movie, it was a high-RPM financial vehicle designed to navigate the complex intersection of Hollywood legacy and the emerging Chinese market. When Sony and Columbia Pictures decided to allocate capital toward this remake, they weren't just betting on a story, they were betting on a balanced portfolio that included the global brand of Jackie Chan and the massive celebrity equity of the Smith family. This was a masterclass in capital risk management, where every dollar spent was calculated to maximize the final return on investment across multiple global territories. Let's break down the initial capital exposure. $40 million might sound like a lot, but for a high-end production with on-location shooting in China, it's actually a model of operational efficiency. The filmmakers didn't just throw money at the screen, they used creative arbitrage to squeeze every bit of value out of their budget. By forming a co-production with the China Film Group, they secured a level of access capital that money alone couldn't buy. This partnership gave them the batasse, the authority, to film at sacred sites like the Forbidden City and the Great Wall, locations that acted as massive visual assets, boosting the film's production value to look like a $100 million blockbuster. This wasn't just about saving money, it was a strategic move to secure the cultural integrity needed to appeal to the domestic Chinese audience, ensuring a strong market position in the world's fastest-growing film economy. The Smith brand and the Jackie Chan equity. You can't talk about the economics of this movie without talking about the management team. Having Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith as producers provided a financial anchor that guaranteed a certain level of global interest. They brought the Smith brand, which in 2010 was synonymous with high-yield success. But the real golden asset was Jaden Smith. For the studio, Jaden was a high-growth potential asset, a young star with an established pedigree who could carry the next-gen demographic. This was a form of vertical integration, where the family brand was leveraged to create a new, durable piece of intellectual property. On the other side of the ledger, you had Jackie Chan. Jackie wasn't just a service provider, an actor, he was a form of emotional capital. His presence secured the film's trust ROI with martial arts purists and international audiences who associate him with high-quality, high-RPM entertainment. Combining these two powerhouses created a synergistic ROI that virtually guaranteed a massive opening weekend. The marketing strategy for The Karate Kid was a masterclass in demographic analytics and CPM-driven targeting. The studio didn't just release a trailer, they released a viral hook. The jacket on, jacket off sequence was engineered to be the ultimate add-value asset. It was a nod to the nostalgia of the original, the wax on, wax off, while proving that the remake had its own process innovation. They utilized a high-frequency media buy strategy, saturating youth-oriented platforms with clips of Jaden's training and Jackie's mentorship. This created a sense of urgency capital among families, making the film a must-see event for the summer season. The CPM, cost per thousand, for their advertising was incredibly efficient because the brand recognition of the Karate Kid title meant they didn't have to spend as much educating the audience on what the movie was about, they only had to show how it was different. Global ROI and the long-tail value. Now, let's look at the final audit of the box office. The Karate Kid, 2010, didn't just succeed, it performed a hostile takeover of the summer box office. Domestically, it brought in roughly $176 million, approximate, and internationally, another $183 million. That's a total global gross revenue of over $359 million on a $40 million initial investment. From a business analytics perspective, that is a staggering return on investment. The film achieved a break-even point in its first weekend, leaving the rest of its theatrical run as pure capital gains. But the ROI didn't stop at the theater. The long-tail value of this project, through digital syndication, television rights, and physical media, has turned it into a legacy asset that continues to generate passive revenue for Sony and Overbrook Entertainment. One of the most interesting social analytics points of this financial story is the China performance. Because the film was a co-production, it didn't count against China's foreign film quota, allowing it to capture a much larger slice of the local revenue pie. This geopolitical financial strategy allowed the filmmakers to tap into the nationalistic capital of the Chinese audience, who saw their culture and landmarks portrayed with respect and high production value. This wasn't just globalization, this was glocalization, taking a global brand and customizing it for a local market to maximize the financial yield. The film's success in China established a blueprint ROI for future Hollywood-China collaborations, proving that cultural competency is a prerequisite for financial success in the modern era. Art Tech Capital Harmony, the production machinery. To achieve this level of success, the filmmakers had to maintain a perfect harmony of art, tech, and capital. The art was the underdog story, the tech was the high-end cinematography and sound design, and the capital was the $40 million budget managed with surgical precision. Every dollar was calculated to enhance the audience engagement metrics. For example, the decision to film the mountain training on location wasn't just an artistic choice, it was a brand investment. Those visuals are what separate a premium asset from a generic action flick. The visual engineering of the mountain peaks and the high RPM drone shots, early versions of that tech in 2010, created a cinematic prestige that justified the ticket price and boosted the film's word-of-mouth capital. We also have to examine the workforce economics of the production. Filming in China allowed the production to leverage a massive, high-skilled labor asset for a fraction of what it would cost in the United States. From the thousands of extras in the tournament scene to the skilled craftsmen who built the sets, the resource allocation was incredibly efficient. This operating leverage is what allowed a $40 million movie to feel like a $100 million epic. The producers managed the leadership stress of working across two different languages and work cultures, creating a systemic synergy that allowed the project to stay on schedule and under budget. This is the batasse of the production manager, ensuring that every unit of human capital is functioning at peak efficiency to protect the investor capital. Risk mitigation and brand protection. Remaking a beloved classic is always a high-risk narrative. If you fail, you don't just lose money, you damage your brand equity with the fans of the original. To manage this reputational risk, the filmmakers allocated significant resources toward ensuring the technical accuracy of the kung fu. They didn't want the fight scenes to look like a cheap derivative. They hired legendary stunt coordinators and made Jaden Smith train for months before a single camera rolled. This pre-production investment was a form of quality insurance. By delivering fight choreography that was actually superior to the original in terms of technical difficulty, they secured the aha ROI from the audience, the moment where skeptics realized that the remake has real asset value. The title asset was also a major point of risk management. As we discussed earlier, keeping the name The Karate Kid while teaching Kung Fu was a brand protection strategy. They knew that the Karate Kid trademark was their most valuable intangible asset. Changing it would have been like a capital flight from their own brand. Instead, they used the market power of the name to sell the movie, while using the technical value of the Kung Fu to surprise and delight the audience. This bait-and-switch ROI worked because the quality of the product was so high that people didn't feel cheated, they felt they had received an upgraded asset. It was a bold market strategy that paid off in spades. Conclusion of the financial autopsy. As we conclude this financial audit of the production, it's clear that The Karate Kid, 2010, was more than just a remake, it was a perfect storm of strategic planning and global execution. The filmmakers successfully decoded the market logic of the 21st century, creating a product that was both a Hollywood blockbuster and a cultural celebration. They managed their capital exposure with extreme discipline, invested in the right human assets, and leveraged the legacy equity of the original to create a new, high RPM success story. The $40 million budget wasn't just spent, it was compounded into a global phenomenon that proved the badass of the underdog story is a universal financial truth. The final audit shows a project that delivered on every metric. It satisfied the investors with a massive ROI, it satisfied the critics by honoring the spirit of the original, and it satisfied the global audience by delivering a high-definition, high-RPM experience that felt both familiar and revolutionary. This is the true definition of art-tech capital harmony, where every part of the machine is working together to create a positive narrative feedback loop. The return on investment here isn't just measured in dollars, it's measured in the cultural longevity of a story that continues to resonate with millions of kids and adults who want to see a scared kid from Detroit stand up and take his jacket off for the world. We've analyzed the mind, we've analyzed the heart, and now we've audited the wallet. We've seen how the Smith-John synergy and the Hollywood-China co-production created a market-dominant entity. The stage is now perfectly set for the high-intensity, final audit of the film's technological ambition, the camera work, the sound design, and the visual engineering that brought the streets of Beijing to life with such devastating clarity. The financial strategy provided the fuel, and now it's time to look at the engine that drove the vision across the finish line. Get ready. The technological audit is coming. We're going to look at the optics of the fight, the acoustics of the tournament, and the visual engineering that made 2010's Beijing a character in its own right. We're moving from the ledger to the lens, and the detail ROI is going to be staggering. It's time to see how the badass of the frame and the science of the shot combined to create a remake that truly earned its place in the sun. We now transition from the boardroom to the technical bay to examine the filmmaking technology and innovation that transformed a $40 million capital investment into a high-definition martial arts epic. In 2010, the industry was undergoing a massive shift in digital capture and visual engineering, and director Harold Swart, along with cinematographer Roger Pratt, had to make critical decisions about their visual ROI. They chose to shoot on 35mm film using Aerocam and Aeroflex systems, a decision that favored organic aesthetic over the cleaner, often flatter look of early digital cinema. To decode the visual architecture of The Karate Kid, 2010, is to understand the strategic allocation of resources toward Panavision Primo and Cooke S4 lenses. These lenses provided a specific cinematic prestige, offering a warm, high-contrast look that captured the grit of Beijing's hutongs and the spiritual clarity of the Wudong Mountains with equal precision. This wasn't just about old-school technology, it was a deliberate production management strategy to ensure the remake had a timeless, premium feel that could stand alongside the 1984 original. The visual engineering of the Beijing landscape is one of the film's most significant technological ambitions. The production team utilized a sophisticated mix of wide-angle compositions and high-RPM camera movement to establish the scale of the city. We see this in the sweep of the camera across the Forbidden City, a location where the production had to manage intense, logistical constraints. By using the Akela crane and specialized dolly rigs, they were able to capture the massive architectural assets without the visual distortion often found in lower-budget projects. This focus on geometric integrity allowed the city to become a character in its own right, a high-value asset that grounded the fish-out-of-water narrative in a visceral, tangible reality. The lighting physics of the Chinese sun, often filtered through the city's unique atmospheric conditions, provided a naturalistic color science that the filmmakers leveraged to create a sense of grounded immersion. The optics of the fight, choreography meets camera. Let's talk about the action ROI of the cinematography. In a martial arts film, the relationship between the lens and the move is everything. To capture the high-velocity kung fu of the fighting dragons, the production utilized multiple camera units and high-speed capture, overcranking, to decode the mechanics of the strikes. Unlike the original, which used a more static, classic Hollywood framing, the 2010 remake employs dynamic focal tracking. This means the camera moves with the punch, creating a sense of kinetic capital that puts the audience in the middle of the fight. The use of the long lens compression in the tournament scenes allowed the filmmakers to isolate the combatants from the crowd, focusing the audience's attention analytics on the technical accuracy of the movements. This was a form of visual risk management. By ensuring every hit looked real and had weight, the filmmakers protected the film's reputation among martial arts purists. We must also explore the innovation in stealth technology used during the Hudong chase sequence. Filming in narrow, crowded alleys required a low-profile production strategy. The team used handheld cameras and lightweight Steadicam rigs to navigate the tight spaces, allowing for a high RPM narrative pace without sacrificing the visual stability of the frame. This mobile engineering allowed the camera to act as a witness to Dre's panic, creating a high level of emotional ROI during the pursuit. The sound design during these sequences, the clatter of shoes on ancient stone, the echoing shouts, and the rhythmic breathing, was managed with digital precision, utilizing multi-track field recorders to capture the auditory brand of Beijing's street life. This synergy of visual and auditory tech created a total immersion asset that made the remake feel more modern and visceral than its predecessor. Visual engineering, the Wudong Mountain sequence. The trip to the Wudong Mountains represents the film's highest visual production value. To capture the mist-covered peaks and the ancient temples, the production utilized high-definition aerial cinematography. In 2010, this often meant using helicopter mounts with stabilized gimbal technology, predating the ubiquitous drone era. These shots provided a god's-eye view of the landscape, establishing the spiritual capital of the Kung Fu tradition. The lighting physics here are entirely different from the city. The filmmakers utilized diffusion filters and natural golden hour light to create a soft, ethereal glow that mirrors Dre's internal growth. This aesthetic reinvestment was a key part of the film's narrative pacing, providing a visual return on investment that rewarded the audience for following Dre through the gritty first act. One specific piece of process innovation was the filming of the Cobra Woman scene. To achieve that hypnotic, mirrored movement between the monk and the snake, the production used a combination of practical animatronics and digital enhancement. The snake had to look and move with biological accuracy to maintain the film's commitment to realism. The filmmakers utilized motion control camera rigs to ensure that Jaden Smith's movements were perfectly synchronized with the snake's frame-by-frame reactions. This was a significant allocation of resources toward a single, philosophical moment, but the educational ROI was immense. It provided the visual proof of the badass of Kung Fu, power through fluidity, making the final tournament payoff feel scientifically earned rather than just a movie trope. The sound of the tournament, auditory architecture. As we move toward the climax, we have to analyze the acoustics of the tournament. The Beijing Indoor Stadium is a massive acoustic environment, and the sound team had to decode the difference between the roar of the crowd and the impact of the hit. They utilized spatial audio engineering to create a 360-degree soundstage, where the audience is placed in the center of the mat. The auditory brand of the Kung Fu, the specific whoosh of a high kick and the thud of a block strike, was meticulously engineered using high-end Foley technology. These sounds weren't just recorded, they were sound designed to have a hyperreal punch, increasing the film's adrenaline ROI. This audio infrastructure is what makes the final matches feel so high stakes. You don't just see the power, you hear the capital investment in every strike. The score by James Horner is another critical piece of technological integration. Horner, a master of emotional analytics, blended traditional Chinese instruments, like the eru and pipa, with a modern orchestral palette. This was a form of auditory glocalization, ensuring the music resonated with Western ears while honoring the film's cultural equity. The production utilized digital audio workstations, DAWs, to layer these textures with precision timing, ensuring the music hits the high RPM beats of the action perfectly. The score functions as a propulsive asset, driving the narrative's momentum capital toward the final, iconic crane kick, or in this case, the scorpion kick. The investment in a composer of Horner's caliber was a form of brand protection, ensuring the remake had the same musical prestige as the original's Bill Conti score. Production management, the digital intermediate and color science. The final look of the film was refined during the digital intermediate (DI) process. This is where the filmmakers perform a final audit of the color and contrast. They utilized high-resolution film scanners to convert the 35mm footage into a digital workspace where they could manipulate the color science of every frame. The Beijing palette was graded to have a slight desaturation in the hue tones, emphasizing the grit, while the tournament and mountain scenes were given a higher color saturation to represent Dre's growing confidence and clarity. This visual narrative arc was a subtle but effective way to manage the audience's emotional response, proving that visual engineering is just as much about psychology as it is about technology. We also have to examine the post-production efficiency. By using non-linear editing systems, the team was able to A/B test different cuts of the fight scenes to maximize the action pacing. They analyzed the audience engagement metrics from test screenings to refine the technical accuracy of the Kung Fu portrayal, ensuring that the final product was a high-performance asset. This iterative process is a key part of modern production management, where the goal is to eliminate narrative waste and ensure that every second of the 140-minute runtime is delivering a high level of return on investment. The technology isn't just a tool for capturing the image, it's a tool for refining the success probability of the final project. Conclusion of the technological audit. As we conclude this technological audit, it's clear that The Karate Kid, 2010, was a masterpiece of art-tech capital harmony. The filmmakers successfully navigated the complexity risk of filming a global blockbuster in China, utilizing the latest in camera systems, sound engineering, and visual color science to deliver a premium cinematic experience. They managed their resource allocation with extreme discipline, ensuring that every piece of technology was serving the badass of the story. The 35mm film provided the emotional texture, the high-end lenses provided the cinematic clarity, and the innovative sound design provided the visceral impact. The engine of this remake was built on a foundation of technical integrity and process innovation. By investing in authentic locations and high-performance labor, the producers created a visual asset that stands the test of time. The film doesn't just look expensive, it looks earned. It proves that in the 21st century, the science of the shot is the ultimate competitive advantage. We have decoded the optics, the acoustics, and the engineering that made the 2010 remake a global phenomenon. Get ready. The technological audit has provided the framework, and now it's time to move toward the high-intensity, final audit of the production management and studio economics. We're going to look at the scheduling, the logistics, and the time equals capital philosophy that brought this 140-minute vision to life. The stage is perfectly set for the tournament climax, and the detail ROI is about to hit its peak. It's time to see how the badass of the schedule and the science of the set combine to create a remake that truly earned its place in the sun. Let's step onto the chaotic, high-pressure floor of the production office to analyze the production management and studio economics of this 2010 blockbuster. In the world of high-stakes filmmaking, the ultimate law, the badass, is that time is capital. For a project like The Karate Kid, which had a massive 140-minute target runtime and a sprawling international scope, the scheduling was a masterclass in resource allocation and risk management. We are looking at a $40 million enterprise where every production day cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in operational exposure. To decode the efficiency of this shoot, we have to look at how director Harold Zwart and his team managed the geopolitical logistics of filming in mainland China. This wasn't just about finding pretty locations, it was about managing a workforce capital of over 500 crew members across multiple provinces, navigating 2 different languages, and staying ahead of the capital drain that comes with unforeseen delays. The hierarchy of production management on a co-production like this is incredibly complex. You have the Hollywood management style of Overbrook and Sony clashing and then harmonizing with the local operational logic of the China Film Group. The unit production managers, UPMs, had to act as diplomatic analysts, ensuring that the technical integrity of the Hollywood vision was maintained while respecting the cultural labor laws of the host country. Every scene, from the intimate moments in Han's courtyard to the high RPM tournament climax, was calculated to maximize the output per unit of time. For the studio, the decision to film in Beijing was a strategic, financial hedge. By utilizing local talent and resources, they were able to deliver a production value that looked twice as expensive as its actual budget, ensuring a higher market position and a better eventual ROI. The logistics of the Forbidden City and Great Wall. Let's talk about the logistical ambition of filming at the Forbidden City. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, not a backlit in Burbank. To get the access capital required to bring a full film crew into that sacred space, the production had to undergo a rigorous bureaucratic audit by the Chinese government. The time-capital correlation here was extreme. They were given very limited windows to film, meaning the crew had to move with surgical precision. There was no room for narrative waste. Every camera setup, every actor movement, and every unit of lighting had to be optimized for efficiency. From a studio economics perspective, the prestige ROI of having real locations like this is immeasurable. It builds consumer trust and makes the film a premium asset that audiences feel is worth their ticket capital. Then you have the Great Wall. Imagine the leadership stress of hauling heavy camera equipment, cranes, and specialized rigs up those ancient steps. This wasn't just a physical challenge, it was a logistical risk assessment. The production had to allocate significant resources towards specialized porters and lightweight, mobile technology to ensure they could capture the wide, cinematic frames without damaging the sight or the gear. This resourceful management allowed the film to leverage one of the world's greatest landmarks as a visual anchor, boosting its global brand equity. For the producers, these shots were high-yield investments. They provided the aha moments in the trailer that drove initial revenue and secured the film's status as a global event. Managing the Smith-John human capital. A major part of the production management task was managing the celebrity assets. Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan were the primary revenue drivers for the film, and their time was the most expensive unit of capital on set. The producers utilized a synchronized scheduling approach to ensure that Jaden's intense training and Jackie's complex choreography were filmed with maximum efficiency. We must examine the instructional ROI of having Jackie Chan on set. He wasn't just an actor, he acted as a secondary director for the action sequences, utilizing his decades of operational experience to streamline the stunts. This saved the production millions in potential reshoot exposure, as Jackie could decode the mechanics of a fight and fix it in real time. This is the definition of human capital optimization, using the specific expertise of your leads to boost the systemic productivity of the whole project. The time equals capital philosophy was also applied to Jaden Smith's growth curve. Because he was a young actor undergoing a physical transformation, the production schedule was calculated to match his muscle memory development. They couldn't film the tournament first, they had to allocate the first several weeks to his training and the more dialogue-heavy Act 1 scenes. This sequential management ensured that by the time the cameras rolled for the high RPM action, Jaden's performance asset was peak. This was a form of risk mitigation. If the training didn't take, the film's action ROI would have plummeted. The producers managed this biological timeline with extreme discipline, ensuring the final product was technically accurate and emotionally resonant. The economics of the tournament, a masterclass in crowd management. As we move toward the tournament, we have to analyze the workforce economics of the stadium scenes. We are talking about thousands of extras, multiple camera units, and a high-stakes competitive environment that had to be manufactured for the screen. The production management team had to coordinate the logistical flow of these thousands of people, ensuring everyone was fed, costumed, and in place for the high-frequency shooting schedule. This was a massive operational risk. Any delay in the tournament scenes would have caused a capital drain that could have derailed the entire fourth-quarter budget. They used pre-visualization, previs, technology to map out every match, allowing the directors and editors to decode the action pacing before they even stepped into the arena. From a studio economic standpoint, the tournament was the centerpiece asset. It was the moment where the underdog narrative met the visual spectacle, creating the payoff ROI that the audience was waiting for. The producers calculated that the more realistic and intense the tournament felt, the higher the long-tail value of the film would be. They invested heavily in Foley and sound design for these scenes to ensure every hit had financial weight. This multisensory management is what makes the 2010 remake feel so high-octane. It's not just about the fight, it's about the acoustics of power and the visual engineering of victory. Every frame of that tournament was an investment in audience adrenaline, calculated to maximize the emotional return. Cultural localization, the co-production financial strategy. We also have to examine the legal and financial batasse of the co-production agreement. Working with the China Film Group meant the production had to comply with local content regulations and revenue-sharing models. This was a complex analytical negotiation. The producers had to ensure the film appealed to both the Western individualist mindset and the Eastern collective values. This cultural balancing act was a form of market strategy. It ensured the film had a broad product-market fit. By including scenes of traditional Chinese medicine, Wudang philosophy, and modern Beijing life, they built social capital with the local audience, which translated into massive domestic revenue in China. This co-production model also allowed the studio to access local subsidies and tax incentives, significantly reducing the initial capital exposure. This financial engineering is a hallmark of modern studio economics. They used creative resource allocation to turn a $40 million budget into a global powerhouse. The leadership stress on the executive producers was to ensure that while the film felt Chinese, it still carried the Sony/Overbrook brand identity. This dual branding strategy was calculated to maximize the cross-border ROI, making the film a transnational success story. The return was not just in dollars, but in the strategic blueprint it created for future Hollywood-China collaborations. Conclusion of the production management audit. As we conclude this operational audit, it's clear that The Karate Kid, 2010, was a triumph of systemic management and resource discipline. The filmmakers successfully decoded the market logic of a global co-production, managing the time capital trade-off with clinical precision. They allocated their resources toward high-value visuals and authentic locations, while keeping a tight grip on the labor and logistical costs. The harmony of the schedule was just as important as the harmony of the shot. The engine of this production was a well-oiled machine of risk assessment and strategic execution. By investing in celebrity equity, cultural integrity, and operational efficiency, the producers created a premium asset that dominated the 2010 market. The film proved that in the world of the remake, the most important skill set is the ability to manage a massive portfolio of variables under extreme pressure. We have decoded the logistics, the scheduling, and the economics that brought the streets of Beijing and the mountains of Wudang to life. Get ready. The operational audit has shown us how the vision was managed, and now it's time to move toward the high-intensity, final audit of the historical and scientific accuracy. We're going to look at the technical reality of the kung fu, the geopolitical accuracy of the portrayal of China, and the educational value of the film as a cultural study. The stage is set for the final round, and the detail ROI is about to reach its ultimate climax. It's time to see how the batasse of the truth and the science of the story combine to create a remake that truly earned its place in the sun. Let's get into the truth audit of this 2010 masterpiece. When we talk about The Karate Kid, we have to examine the historical and scientific accuracy of the world it builds. From a human perspective, this is where the film either earns its technical integrity or falls into the trap of Hollywood fantasy. To decode the batasse of this film's accuracy, we have to look at the transition from karate to kung fu. While the title is a legacy brand, the actual practice on screen is wushu and traditional kung fu. This wasn't just a stylistic swap, it was a significant allocated investment in cultural accuracy. The filmmakers hired Master Wu Gang, a high-ranking instructor from the Jackie Chan stunt team, to oversee the technical training of the young cast. This ensured that the skill set assets we see on screen are based on the real biomechanics of wushu, moving the film from a standard action flick to a documentary-adjacent study of martial arts discipline. When we analyze the scientific reality of the training, specifically the jacket-on, jacket-off sequence, we're looking at the physics of muscle memory and systemic pattern recognition. In martial arts, this is called Kihan or foundational movement. The science here is solid. By repeating a specific motor task thousands of times, the brain creates neural high RPM pathways that allow for instantaneous, subconscious execution during a high-stress, market event, like a fight. The filmmakers used this to provide an educational ROI, showing the audience that power doesn't come from a secret move, but from the process efficiency of a disciplined body. Jaden Smith didn't just pretend to train, he underwent an operational audit of his own physical capabilities for months. This pre-production capital is visible in every frame, giving the technical portrayal a level of market authority that resonated with martial arts practitioners globally. The geopolitical and cultural landscape, Beijing 2010. Now, let's talk about the historical snapshot of Beijing in 2010. This was a city in a state of hypergrowth, caught between its ancient cultural capital and its new role as a global market power. The film does a brilliant job of capturing this economic duality. We see the hutongs, the traditional, narrow alleys that represent the heritage assets of the city, contrasted with the gleaming skyscrapers and high RPM infrastructure of the Olympic era. This wasn't just background noise, it was a deliberate, geopolitical branding move. The production had to manage the risk of misrepresentation, ensuring that the portrayal of China was nuanced and respectful. By showing the communal life in the parks, the competitive pressure in the schools, and the spiritual solitude of the mountains, the film delivered a high cultural ROI, presenting Beijing not as a caricature, but as a living, breathing, operational environment. We also have to look at the scientific accuracy of the traditional Chinese medicine shown in the film. The fire cupping sequence with Mr. Han isn't just exotic B-roll, it's a practice used for centuries to manage physical capital recovery. The science behind it involves creating a vacuum to stimulate blood flow and manage internal inflammation. By including this, the filmmakers provided a technical diversification of the story, moving beyond just the fight and into the holistic management of the athlete. This authenticity asset helped the film avoid the Western savior trope, positioning Mr. Han as a repository of traditional knowledge systems that are just as valid as the modern training analytics seen in Master Li's dojo. It's a study in balanced perspectives, where the old world and the new world find a state of systemic harmony. The Wudong Mountains and the Cobra, myth versus physics. Let's decode the spiritual science of the Wudong Mountain sequence. Wudong is historically significant as the birthplace of Tai Chi and internal martial arts. The film's portrayal of this sacred geography acts as a cultural anchor, connecting Dre's training to thousands of years of historical equity. When we see the monk on the mountain controlling the cobra, we are looking at a masterclass in fluid dynamics and behavioral synchronicity. Scientifically, this isn't about magic, it's about a human mirroring the oscillation frequency of the snake to neutralize its aggression. It's a visual metaphor for risk mitigation, learning to move with the market rather than against it. This educational asset teaches Dre, and us, that the highest form of leadership stress management is the ability to remain calm and fluid while facing a high-volatility threat. The scientific integrity of the scorpion kick, the final move, is also worth an audit. In the 1984 original, the crane kick was a relatively simple, single-variable move. The 2010 scorpion kick is a multi-axis technical maneuver. It requires extreme flexibility capital, precise timing analytics, and a high level of core stability. The filmmakers ensured that Jaden Smith could actually perform the mechanics of the move, even if wires were used for safety during the high-intensity shoot. This performance asset was calculated to be the ultimate return on investment for the training narrative. It's a proof of concept that Han's process-oriented training could produce a high-performance result that was technically superior to the brute force model of Master Li. Technical accuracy of the tournament, Wushu rules. As we move into the tournament, we see the operational reality of modern Wushu competition. The mats, the scoring systems, and the referee protocols are all based on the batasse of real Chinese martial arts tournaments. The filmmakers allocated resources to ensure the administrative analytics of the fight looked authentic. They used real Wushu athletes as extras and competitors, providing a technical depth that a generic action unit couldn't replicate. This labor asset gave the final act a level of professional prestige, making the tournament feel like a peak market event. We analyze the match between Dre and Chang as a clash of strategic philosophies, Dre's reactive defense versus Chang's aggressive liquidation. The accuracy of the point scoring system ensures that the technical merit of each fighter is clearly visible to the audience. We must also examine the accuracy of the injuries. When Master Li orders his student to break his leg, he is initiating an illegal market action. The film portrays the physical cost of this trauma with realistic medical analytics. The use of the fire cupping and massage to temporarily repair the asset for the final round is a stretch of medical science, but it's grounded in the psychological tenacity required of high-level athletes. This resilience ROI is what moves the audience. It's not just about the science of the fix, but the science of the will. The filmmakers manage this suspension of disbelief by grounding the rest of the film in such high technical accuracy that we are willing to buy into the miraculous recovery for the final emotional payoff. The cultural impact of the remake's accuracy. The historical value of The Karate Kid, 2010, lies in its role as a cultural bridge. By accurately portraying the batasse of Beijing life and the technical reality of Kung Fu, the film served as a mass media educational asset for a Western audience that often has a capital deficit when it comes to understanding Chinese culture. This wasn't just entertainment, it was a diplomatic enterprise that boosted the soft power of the locations and traditions it featured. The return on investment for the city of Beijing and the Wudong Mountains was a massive surge in tourism interest, proving that cinematic authenticity can have a direct economic impact on the real world. This is the ultimate harmony of art, tech, and capital when a film's internal truth creates external value. From a social analytics perspective, the film's accuracy in showing the pressure on Chinese youth to succeed in academics and the arts provided a rare look into the human capital development of the local culture. The behavioral economics of Mei Ying's family are portrayed with a level of nuanced detail that avoids stereotypes, showing the love-based motivation behind the high-performance expectations. This sociological accuracy increased the film's brand equity with international critics, who appreciated the narrative maturity of the remake. The filmmakers successfully decoded the universal language of the underdog, but they did it by speaking the specific dialect of the local culture. This is how you create a global asset that feels locally authenticated. Conclusion of the accuracy audit. As we conclude this technical and historical audit, it's clear that The Karate Kid, 2010, earned its market position through a relentless commitment to truthful representation. The batasse of the kung fu was technically accurate, the geopolitical landscape was historically grounded, and the scientific physics of the training were based on real neuromotor principles. The filmmakers didn't just remake a brand, they reinvested in a culture, providing a return on investment that was both financial and educational. The engine of this film's credibility was built on a foundation of technical integrity and respectful observation. By investing in expert consultants and sacred locations, the producers created a premium asset that stands as a definitive study in cross-cultural storytelling. The 2010 remake proved that in the world of global cinema, the most valuable resource is the truth. We have decoded the science, the history, and the culture that brought Dre Parker's journey to life. Get ready. The accuracy audit has provided the moral authority for the story, and now it's time to move toward the high-intensity, final audit of the cinematography and visual engineering. We're going to look at the lighting physics, the camera choreography, and the visual architecture that made the streets of Beijing and the tournament arena feel so visceral. The stage is set for the visual climax, and the detail ROI is about to reach its peak. It's time to see how the batasse of the frame and the science of the light combine to create a remake that truly earned its place in the sun. Let's shift our focus to the visual strategy of this 2010 epic, where we examine the cinematography and visual engineering that turned a $61 million production into a feast for the eyes. When you're remaking a classic, the visual ROI is one of your biggest hurdles. You can't just copy the original, you have to evolve the auditory and visual brand. Director Harold Swart and cinematographer Roger Pratt made the incredibly bold decision to stick with 35mm film rather than going fully digital. In 2010, that was a statement. Film has an organic aesthetic, a grain and a texture that provides a level of emotional capital that early digital cameras struggled to replicate. To decode the visual language of The Karate Kid is to understand how Pratt used the Panavision Primo and Cooke S4 lenses to create a cinematic prestige that makes every frame feel like a high-value asset. This wasn't just about pretty pictures, it was about the batasse of the frame, ensuring the remake looked as timeless and expensive as the culture it was portraying. The lighting physics of this movie are a masterclass in contrast management. Pratt had to navigate the atmospheric duality of Beijing. On one hand, you have the gritty, high-contrast reality of the hutongs, the narrow alleys where Dre lives. Here, the lighting is harsh, using deep shadows and low-key setups to emphasize Dre's isolation and the risk exposure of his environment. On the other hand, you have the high-key, soft, and golden light of the Wudong Mountains and the school scenes. This transition isn't just aesthetic, it's an analytical narrative tool. It visually tracks Dre's psychological growth from the shadows of fear to the light of clarity. The filmmakers utilized the natural, often hazy light of Beijing to create a specific color science that feels grounded and real, rather than the overly polished look of a standard summer blockbuster. This visual integrity is a massive part of the film's brand equity, making the world of Dre Parker feel lived in and authentic. The camera as a combatant, action ROI and choreography. Now, let's talk about the action ROI of the camera work. In a martial arts film, the camera isn't just a witness, it's a participant in the fight. Pratt and the second unit directors utilized dynamic focal tracking to make the kung fu feel high RPM and visceral. Instead of the wide, static shots of the 80s, the 2010 camera fights alongside the actors. We see snap zooms and rapid, pan-and-tilt movements that mimic the velocity of a strike. This is a form of visual risk management. By making the camera move with the energy of the move, the filmmakers ensure that the audience feels the impact capital of every punch. The use of high shutter speed photography in the tournament scenes helps to decode the mechanics of the kung fu, making every movement sharp and technically accurate. This isn't just shaky cam, it's calculated motion designed to maximize audience engagement metrics. We also have to examine the stealth engineering used during the Hudong chase sequence. Filming in those tight spaces required the crew to allocate their resources toward handheld technology. By using lightweight Aeroflex cameras and specialized body mount gimbals, the filmmakers were able to weave through the narrow passages with Dre. This mobile cinematography creates a high level of kinetic ROI, capturing the frantic, high-stakes energy of a kid running for his life. The camera stays close to Jaden Smith's face, focusing on the psychological data of his panic, while the wide-angle lenses keep the walls of the hutongs closing in on him. This is visual storytelling at its most efficient, using the geography of the shot to reinforce the batasse of Dre's displacement. It's the difference between seeing a chase and being in it. Visual engineering of landmarks, the scale of the empire. Let's decode the scale analytics used when filming The Great Wall and the Forbidden City. These aren't just sets, they are global visual assets with massive prestige ROI. To capture The Great Wall, the production utilized techno-crane technology, telescoping camera cranes that allowed them to sweep over the ancient stones without actually touching the heritage structure. This logistical engineering provided the wide, sweeping vistas that established the spiritual capital of Dre's training. By placing the small unit of the student and mentor against the infinite scale of the wall, the filmmakers are visually communicating the historical depth of Kung Fu. This is a high-yield visual strategy that builds consumer trust by showing that the production has the access capital to be in the most significant places on Earth. The Forbidden City sequence is another masterpiece of geometric visual engineering. The architects of that site used alignment physics to create a sense of absolute power, and Roger Pratt's camera respects that badass. He uses center frame composition and symmetrical wide shots to capture the rigid, majestic order of the location. This creates a powerful contrast with the messy, organic life of the hutongs. This visual resource allocation highlights the cultural integrity of the film, proving that the remake is a serious enterprise that respects the heritage assets of China. The lighting here is vast and unfiltered, emphasizing the transparency of power. For the audience, these shots provide a massive visual return, making the film feel like a premium experience that justifies the investment of time. The optics of the tournament, managing the high RPM climax. As we move into the tournament, the visual engineering shifts into its most high-intensity phase. We are talking about a stadium environment with thousands of extras and multiple matches happening simultaneously. To manage this information overload, the filmmakers used color-coded visual systems. Each dojo has its own visual ID, the fighting dragons in their aggressive reds and blacks, Dre in his cleaner whites and blues. This allows the audience to instantly decode the market competition on screen. The use of slow-motion capture during the final scorpion kick is the ultimate visual payoff ROI. By stretching those few seconds of technical precision into a long, graceful arc, the filmmakers are giving the audience the technical evidence of Dre's mastery. This final move, the scorpion kick, is a study in biomechanical visual engineering. To capture it, the production utilized multiple, high-speed camera units from different angles to ensure the technical accuracy of Jaden Smith's movement was undeniable. They used rack focusing to shift the audience's attention from the aggressive face of Cheng to the calm, focused internal management of Dre. This focus strategy is a key part of the film's psychological ROI, showing the victory is one of the mind as much as the body. The lighting physics of the arena, harsh, bright spotlights, creates a stage for conflict that mimics a high-stakes corporate boardroom or a global sporting event. It's the final audit of the film's action assets, and the cinematography ensures it's delivered with maximum impact. The digital intermediate, finalizing the visual portfolio. The final look of The Karate Kid, 2010, was polished during the Digital Intermediate (DI) process, which is effectively the final quality audit of the visual product. The filmmakers scanned the 35mm negative into a high-resolution digital workspace to perform color grading. They allocated specific LUTs, lookup tables, to different sequences to enhance the narrative ROI. For example, the scenes in Detroit have a cooler, desaturated, industrial palette, representing a stagnant market. Beijing, by contrast, starts with a vibrant but overwhelming sensory saturation, which gradually becomes more balanced and harmonious as Dre masters the badass of his new home. This color arc is a sophisticated piece of visual analytics that reinforces the emotional journey without saying a word. This DI process also allowed the filmmakers to manage the risk of visual noise in the darker Hudong scenes and ensure the skin tones remain natural across the diverse cast. They utilized digital sharpening on the kung fu strikes to enhance the action clarity, making the hits feel faster and more precise. This technological finishing is what gives the film its premium gloss, ensuring it serves as a durable asset in Sony's library for decades. The investment in high-end post-production resource management is visible in the way the film holds up on modern high-definition and 4K displays. It's a future-proofed visual strategy that ensures the return on investment continues long after the initial theatrical run. Conclusion of the visual and engineering audit. As we wrap up this technological audit of the cinematography, it's clear that The Karate Kid, 2010, achieved a state-of-art tech capital harmony through its visual choices. Roger Pratt didn't just point a camera, he engineered a visual language that honored the heritage assets of the story while providing a high RPM modern aesthetic. The choice of 35mm film was an investment in texture and emotion, the techno-crane work was an investment in scale and prestige, and the DI color grading was an investment in narrative clarity. The visual engine of this remake was built on a foundation of technical integrity and respectful observation. By allocating capital toward authentic locations and high-performance camera units, the producers created a visual asset that stands as a definitive study in globalized storytelling. We have decoded the optics, the physics, and the engineering that brought the heart of China to the screen with such visceral power. The badass of the lens has been established, and the science of the frame has been proven. Get ready. We've seen the world, and now it's time to hear it. Our next high-intensity audit will move into the sound design and music production. We're going to look at the acoustics of the tournament, the auditory brand of the strike, and the propulsive ROI of James Horner's globalized score. The stage is set for the auditory climax, and the detail ROI is about to reach its peak. It's time to see how the badass of the sound and the science of the score combine to create a remake that truly earned its place in the sun. Now, close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a Beijing hudong at 5 in the morning. You hear the distant, rhythmic thud of someone practicing forms, the clatter of a bicycle over stone, the hiss of a street vendor's steamer, and the low, constant hum of a city that never really sleeps. This is the auditory brand of The Karate Kid, 2010. To decode the success of this remake, we have to examine the sound design and music production, the hidden gears that turn a visual story into an immersive, high RPM experience. In the world of badass and stream mechanics, sound isn't just an accompaniment, it's a primary asset that defines the film's technical integrity. Director Harold Swart and his sound team, led by experts like Ethan Van der Ryn and Eric Ottel, didn't just record noise, they engineered a soundscape portfolio designed to maximize the emotional ROI of Dre's journey. This was a $40 million capital investment in auditory immersion, where every frequency was canalcula to make you feel the weight of the displacement and the power of the strike. Let's start with the city itself. Beijing is a high RPM auditory environment. The sound team traveled to China months before the main unit to perform a field recording audit. They captured the sonic identity of the locations, the specific echo of the Forbidden City, the wind whistling through the Great Wall, and the chaotic, layered texture of the schoolyard. This wasn't just for atmosphere, it was a strategic allocation of resources toward cultural equity. By using authentic acoustic assets, they ensured the film felt grounded in reality. From a production management standpoint, this pre-production sound capital is what separates a generic studio film from a global event. When Dre walks through the streets, the sound design uses spatial audio engineering to place you in his shoes. You hear the auditory friction of a kid who doesn't fit in, the language he doesn't understand swirling around him like a digital fog. This isn't just noise, it's a representation of his psychological risk exposure, and it pays off by making his eventual mastery of the environment sound just as sweet as it looks. One of the most brilliant pieces of process innovation in the film is the sound of the jacket. Think about the repetitive thud-zip click of Dre hanging it up, taking it down, and putting it on. In the second act, this sound becomes a narrative metronome. The sound designers treated the jacket as a percussive instrument. At first, the sounds are messy, uncoordinated, reflecting Dre's operational inefficiency. But as the training progresses, the rhythm becomes tight, sharp, and high RPM. This is auditory narrative arc at its finest. Without seeing a single punch, the audience can hear Dre's internal management becoming more disciplined. This acoustic metadata tells the story of his growth through pure frequency. It's a technical payoff that primes the audience for the tournament, making the transition from laundry to kung fu feel biologically and scientifically inevitable. The sound team used high-end directional mics to capture the specific snap of the fabric, giving the jacket a sonic weight that mirrors its importance in the story. Now, we have to talk about the propulsive ROI of the score. Hiring James Horner was a massive strategic investment by Sony and Overbrook. Horner was a titan of cinematic capital, and his score for The Karate Kid was a masterclass in auditory glocalization. He had to bridge the gap between the Western underdog theme and the Eastern philosophical depth of the story. To do this, Horner utilized a hybrid instrumentation strategy. He blended a full Western orchestra with traditional Chinese instruments like the eru, the pipa, and the dizi. This wasn't just a world music gimmick, it was a form of emotional risk management. The eru, with its human-like crying tone, provided the trauma management theme for Mr. Han, while the driving strings and percussion provided the adrenaline analytics for the tournament. Every time that eru cries, we are hearing the sunk cost of Han's past, and every time the strings swell, we are hearing the potential growth of Dre's future. Horner's score acts as a market stabilizer for the film's pacing. During the quiet moments in the Wudong Mountains, the music is expansive, utilizing high-fidelity reverb to mimic the scale of the peaks. This provides a visual auditory synthesis that boosts the film's production value to an elite level. During the training montages, Horner uses rhythmic pulses that sync with the jacket-on, jacket-off movements, creating a systemic synergy between the sound effects and the music. This total asset integration is what makes the remake feel so much more high-performance than the original. For the studio, the investment in Horner was a form of brand protection. They knew a legendary composer would give the remake the cinematic prestige it needed to be taken seriously as a global asset. Horner didn't just write a score, he created a financial emotional bridge that allowed the audience to buy into a remake of a beloved classic. Let's decode the technical reality of the Kung Fu strikes. Martial arts sound design is a delicate balance of physics and fantasy. If the hits are too quiet, the action ROI is low. If they're too loud, they lose technical integrity. The team used Foley engineering to create a specific auditory brand for Han's Kung Fu vs. Master Li's. The fighting dragon strikes are aggressive and industrial, the sounds are sharp, metallic, and high impact, symbolizing their merciless management style. Han and Dre's movements, by contrast, are organic and fluid, incorporating the sound of wind, the rustle of fabric, and soft tissue impacts. This auditory contrast reinforces the psychological conflict of the film without the need for dialogue. It's a study in nonverbal analytics, where the batass of the fight is communicated through pure vibration. When Dre blocks a strike, the sound is a calculated defense, not a desperate struggle, and that distinction is all in the sound mix. During the tournament climax, the sound design shifts into high RPM overdrive. The Beijing indoor stadium is a closed-system acoustic environment, and the sound team had to manage the risk of auditory fatigue. They used frequency filtering to ensure that the roar of the crowd didn't wash out the technical detail of the hits. You hear the squeak of the shoes on the mat, the huff of the fighter's breath, and the resonance of the buzzer. This detail ROI makes the matches feel visceral and high-stakes. The final audit of the sound design occurs during the scorpion kick, the world goes silent, the music drops out, and all we hear is a single, crystalline whoosh as Dre takes flight. This negative space strategy is the ultimate aha moment, focusing the audience's entire attention capital on the final value proposition of Dre's training. It's the most expensive sounding silence in 2010 cinema. The final stage of the auditory journey is the final mix. This is where the batass of the soundstage is established. The engineers utilized Dolby surround sound analytics to create a 360-degree environment. We analyzed the panner movements during the Hudong chase. The sounds of the bullies move from the rear speakers to the front, creating a sense of imminent risk exposure for the audience. This directional sound strategy is a key part of the film's immersive ROI. The mix had to balance the dialogue clarity of the intimate Handre scenes with the high-intensity action of the tournament. It was a massive operational task to ensure the Eru didn't get lost in the base of the stadium. The result is a mix that feels both cinematic and scientific, reflecting the $40 million resource allocation toward technical excellence. From a studio economics perspective, the sound post-production was a significant allocation of capital toward future-proofing. By creating a high-fidelity, multi-layered mix, the studio ensured that the film remains a reference-quality asset for modern home theater systems. This long-tail value is essential for a legacy brand like The Karate Kid. The audio metadata is so rich that you can watch the movie 10 times and still hear new data points in the background, the sound of a distant bird in Wudong or the specific clink of a teacup in the courtyard. This detail-oriented management is what makes the remake feel like a premium global product, justifying its $40 million budget and securing its market position for decades. Every clink and thud is a micro-asset in the studio's portfolio. As we conclude this technological audit of the sound and music, it's clear that The Karate Kid, 2010, achieved a state of art-tech capital harmony. James Horner provided the emotional currency, the sound designers provided the technical infrastructure, and the final mix provided the cinematic clarity. The sound wasn't just an extra, it was an active participant in Dre Parker's transformation. We have decoded the frequencies, the rhythms, and the acoustic engineering that brought the heart of China to our ears with such devastating power. This is the batass of the soundscape, where the physics of acoustics meet the art of the story to create something that sounds like a masterclass. The auditory engine of this remake was built on a foundation of technical integrity and process innovation. By investing in authentic field recordings, high-end orchestration, and precision Foley, the producers created an auditory asset that stands as a definitive study in total immersion storytelling. The 2010 remake proved that in the world of the global blockbuster, what you hear is just as important as what you see. The batass of the year has been established, and the science of the sound has been proven. Dre Parker's journey is one we see with our eyes, but we feel it through our ears. It's the harmony of the strike, the rhythm of the training, and the melody of redemption, all canalcula to perfection. We've seen the world and we've heard the world. Now, it's time to move toward the high-intensity, final audit of the marketing strategy and audience analytics. We're going to look at the viral hooks, the demographic targeting, and the global ROI that made this remake a $350 million phenomenon. The stage is set for the commercial climax, and the detail ROI is about to reach its ultimate peak. It's time to see how the batass of the brand and the science of the sale combine to create a remake that truly earned its place in the sun. The numbers are coming, and they're just as high RPM as the Kung Fu. We now examine the marketing strategy and audience analytics of The Karate Kid, 2010, a phase where the $40 million production enterprise was positioned for its high-stakes collision with the global marketplace. To decode the commercial logic of this launch is to understand the strategic allocation of a massive promotional budget, estimated in the range of $30 to $40 million, designed to mitigate investor risk and secure a dominant market position. Sony Pictures and Columbia utilized a sophisticated risk management strategy by selecting a June 11 release window, a move canalcula to capture the high RPM family audience at the very start of the summer vacation cycle. This placement allowed the film to act as a market leader for the month, providing a high level of screen share ROI and ensuring that the film's cultural integrity brand could cut through the noise of competing blockbusters. The marketing team had to analyze the shifting behavioral economics of 2010, where the underdog story was being reframed for a hyperconnected, globalized youth demographic. The trailer testing and hook development for this remake represented a significant investment in the film's visual brand equity. We must analyze the architecture of the primary trailer, which was engineered to trigger specific audience analytics among both the nostalgic original fans and the next-gen Jaden Smith demographic. The trailer's focus on the jacket training and the visceral Beijing scenery acted as a potent CPM magnet, attracting an audience that values high-definition production value and technical mastery. By highlighting the Jackie Chan mentor persona, the marketing team utilized star power ROI to speak directly to the global action community, ensuring that the film felt authoritative and premium. This focus on the legacy refined was a deliberate financial move. It transformed the film from a simple remake into a must-see cultural event, allowing Sony to charge a higher premium for advertising slots during family-oriented programming and high-impact sports broadcasts. We explore the demographic targeting strategy, which utilized a three-tiered approach to maximize the film's initial revenue. The first tier was the legacy segment, parents who grew up with Daniel LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi, who provided the base layer ROI and served as the primary decision-makers for family outings. The second tier was the Jaden Smith demographic, a youth audience attracted to the modern, high RPM energy and the aspirational, blue-collar competence of the lead character. The third tier was the global martial arts community, attracted by Jackie Chan's participation and the technical accuracy of the wushu portrayal. By decoding these different psychological triggers, the marketing team ensured a broad product market fit that transcended the limitations of a typical kids' movie, positioning The Karate Kid as a sophisticated global inquiry into the nature of discipline and respect. The CPM logic and media buy strategy for this release were built around the concept of contextual relevance. The production team allocated a significant portion of the marketing budget toward high-impact television spots during events with massive family viewership, such as the NBA Finals and primetime reality shows, where the expert hero narrative would resonate with the audience's own values of competition and growth. We must analyze the psychological ROI of these placements. By associating Dre Parker with the peak of youthful athletic and tactical performance, the studio increased the film's aspirational value. Furthermore, the use of digital A/B testing for YouTube trailers allowed the studio to decode which technical details, like the Great Wall training or the final scorpion kick, generated the highest engagement metrics. This data-driven approach minimized the risk of a quiet opening and ensured that the emotional hook was sharpened for maximum conversion at the box office. We must also interpret the role of star equity in the film's marketing narrative. Jaden Smith's involvement was not just a casting choice, it was a critical financial asset that provided a reliable projected revenue stream. His public training videos and the behind-the-scenes footage of him learning Kung Fu created a trust ROI that built anticipation for his physical transformation. The marketing campaign leveraged this by featuring the Smith family brand in interviews, a form of authenticity marketing that boosted the film's cultural capital. This strategy was calculated to reduce the marketing friction that often exists when a studio tries to sell a remake. By grounding the complexity in the relatable, competent face of a young star with massive family support, Sony secured its market value across diverse global territories. When examining the international ROI strategy, we see that the film was marketed with a specific focus on the global citizen archetype, which translates with high efficiency across cultural boundaries. While the domestic campaign emphasized the underdog legend, the international trailers focused on the Beijing exploration and the Jackie Chan legacy, ensuring a broad audience engagement in markets like China, Europe, and Latin America. This global resource allocation allowed the film to recover its capital exposure in territories where the specific nuances of the 1980s American original might be less relevant, but the visceral thrill of the tournament remains a universal language. The studio's analysts calculate that the film's high production value and clear visual storytelling would act as a hedge against the volatility of any single market, providing a durable revenue stream through global syndication. The transition from theatrical release to the home entertainment window represented the film's true break-even logic and long-term financial success. For a martial arts film like The Karate Kid, the DVD and digital market in 2010 was a high RPM revenue driver, as families were eager to own a reference-quality asset that could be watched repeatedly. The marketing strategy for the home release shifted from urgency to depth, highlighting the special features, deleted training scenes, and the making of a master documentaries that increased the film's educational value. This collector ROI ensured that the film maintained a high market value long after its theatrical run ended, contributing to its status as a staple of the long-tail revenue model. The Ugnayan of art and tech is perfectly visible in this transition, where the film's technical precision makes it a permanent part of the viewer's personal digital library. Furthermore, the brand protection strategy for the film involved managing the critical reception and the expert review cycle. The studio allocated resources toward hosting private screenings for martial arts influencers and family-oriented bloggers, a move calculated to generate grassroots credibility. By securing the endorsement of the very communities the film portrayed, the marketing team created a validation ROI that shielded the film from being dismissed as a hollow remake. This focus on technical accuracy as a marketing pillar was a masterclass in brand equity management. It ensured that the film was treated as a serious contribution to the genre, rather than a temporary piece of summer entertainment. This credibility is what continues to drive the film's CPM during its modern life on streaming platforms, where it remains a high-performing asset for subscribers seeking competency-driven, family narratives. We must also analyze the synergy ROI between the film and its global brand identity. The marketing team cross-promoted the film with various lifestyle brands and youth initiatives, tapping into an existing loyalty capital among the active youth demographic. This cross-platform resource allocation ensured that the film had a built-in audience of subject matter experts who could champion the film's message of discipline. By respecting the original's focus on the philosophy of the mentor, the filmmakers secured a high level of niche brand equity, ensuring that the film became a definitive cinematic representation of the Karate Kid brand for a new era. This strategic alignment increased the film's intellectual property value, eventually contributing to the continued relevance of the franchise in the current market. In conclusion, the marketing strategy and audience analytics of The Karate Kid, 2010, demonstrate how a high-stakes remake can achieve blockbuster influence through disciplined demographic targeting and a commitment to technical integrity. By decoding the psychology of the global family audience and leveraging the star equity of its leads, Sony Pictures successfully navigated the risks of the 2010 market. Every CPM dollar and every trailer edit was calculated to maximize the film's initial ROI and protect its long-tail market value. We have examined the financial machinery that moved this film from the editing bay to the global stage, proving that in the enterprise of cinema, the batas of success is the perfect harmony of art, tech, and capital. The film stands as a durable asset that continues to provide emotional and financial dividends, a testament to the power of a well-executed marketing vision. We now examine the critical reception, awards impact, and legacy forecast of The Karate Kid, 2010, a phase where we analyze how a $40 million production enterprise transformed into a durable piece of cultural capital. Upon its release in June 2010, the film met a critical landscape that was calculated to respond to its blend of technical integrity and globalized nostalgia. While some traditional critics were skeptical of a remake, the majority recognized it as a significant asset in the family action genre. To decode the film's initial reception is to understand the review ROI, where the film's commitment to location shooting in China and Jackie Chan's weary, grounded performance earned it a prestigious market position among viewers who expected a hollow cash-in. The critical consensus noted the calculated intensity of Jaden Smith's physical transformation, which acted as a financial anchor, ensuring the film's credibility in a market often saturated with low-effort remakes. The award's impact of The Karate Kid, while not focused on the Academy circuit, is found in its genre prestige and its dominance at the Teen Choice and Kids' Choice Awards. From a behavioral economics perspective, these technical and popularity acknowledgments served as a form of brand validation, increasing the film's long-term market value and ensuring its status as a reference-quality asset for the youth demographic. We must interpret the film's success at the box office, grossing over $359 million, as the ultimate award, a financial validation of the studio's risk management strategy. The lack of highbrow awards was a sunk cost that the producers were willing to accept in exchange for massive global ROI and a dominant position in the summer market. The film proved that technical accuracy in martial arts and emotional depth can drive high RPM revenue without needing a gold statue to justify the capital exposure. Legacy forecast, the durable asset in the Sony library. When we analyze the legacy forecast for this 140-minute masterclass, we see a film that has achieved a state of evergreen profitability through its long-tail revenue model. In the years since its release, the 2010 remake has transitioned from a theatrical blockbuster to a dominant presence on digital streaming platforms and high-definition syndication. The film's CPM resilience is a testament to its production value. It remains a high-performing asset for streamers like Netflix and Peacock because its themes of individual resilience and cross-cultural mentorship are timeless. The Ugnayan of art and tech in this production has created a durable intellectual property that continues to trigger specific audience analytics, appealing to a new generation of viewers who decode the world through the lens of global competency. This long-term valuation proves that the initial $40 million investment was a masterstroke of library asset strategy. We must also explore the film's cultural ROI in the context of its influence on the broader Karate Kid franchise. While the 2010 film exists in its own narrative market segment, it successfully sharpened the hook for the brand's resurgence in the late 2010s and 2020s. Its influence can be seen in the high production standards of subsequent martial arts content that prioritizes tactical truth and character depth. The film's decoding of the mentor's trauma, giving Jackie Chan a tragic backstory that mirrored the internal management of Mr. Miyagi, has become a reference point for how to evolve legacy characters with respect and emotional ROI. This legacy is a form of intellectual capital that transcends the initial financial spreadsheet, cementing the film's place in the canon of successful modern remakes. The Jackie Chan pivot, a strategic shift in actor equity. One of the most significant legacy data points is how this film transformed Jackie Chan's brand equity in the West. It proved that he could deliver a high level of dramatic ROI without relying solely on his high RPM stunt work. This asset diversification allowed Chan to transition into a new phase of his career, providing a prestige anchor for his global brand. For the audience, seeing Jackie Chan in a state of emotional vulnerability provided a high emotional payoff, proving that the batas of his talent extended far beyond physical comedy. This shift in market perception is a durable result of the 2010 production, ensuring that the film is remembered as a pivotal moment in the history of one of cinema's greatest human assets. The return on investment for Chan's career was a renewed sense of critical credibility that remains a valuable part of his portfolio today. We must also interpret the film's scientific legacy as its most unique contribution to the genre. By serving as an education-friendly masterclass in kung fu biomechanics and the psychology of repetitive discipline, the film has become a staple for young martial artists. This accuracy ROI has given the film a degree of market-defying longevity, as it is shielded from the datedness that often plagues CGI-heavy action films from the same era. The reliance on practical locations and the technical integrity of the wushu choreography has ensured that the film's production value remains prestigious even by modern standards. For the studio, this authenticity is a form of risk mitigation against the depreciation of cinematic assets. Because the science of the training remains unchanged, the film's analytical value remains constant. Behavioral impact, the global underdog archetype. From a social analytics perspective, the film's legacy is tied to its portrayal of a global citizen underdog. Dre Parker's journey from the Detroit Rust Belt to the Beijing high RPM market is a metaphor for the 21st century experience of displacement and adaptation. This narrative ROI resonates with an international audience that values resourcefulness and cross-cultural competency. The film's success in China established a blueprint ROI for Hollywood-China co-productions, proving that cultural respect and technical accuracy are the keys to unlocking dual-market revenue. This strategic legacy continues to influence how major studios allocate capital for international projects, making The Karate Kid, 2010, a foundational case study in globalized film economics. Furthermore, the behavioral impact of the film on its audience has created a community of loyalty that continues to drive its digital CPM. The film's portrayal of a hero who uses his mind as his primary weapon resonates deeply with the modern ethos of skill building and individual agency. We see this in the high engagement metrics for clips of the jacket training on social media, where the systemic discipline of the sequence continues to inspire viewers. This digital ROI is a modern metric of a film's legacy, proving that the art-tech capital harmony achieved in 2010 is still functioning as a potent psychological trigger today. The film stands as a significant piece of cultural capital, a story that families return to because it provides a sense of moral and technical clarity in an increasingly complex world. Conclusion of the legacy audit. As we conclude this legacy and reception forecast, we reflect on the $40 million gamble that Sony and Overbrook Entertainment took in 2010. The result was not just a successful theatrical run, but the creation of a durable financial asset that has paid off in multiple dimensions. The Karate Kid, 2010, has decoded the formula for a lasting remake: combine a bankable family brand with uncompromised technical integrity, wrap it in a sophisticated global narrative, and manage the production logic with surgical efficiency. We have analyzed the numbers, the science, and the psychology that make this film a permanent fixture in our cinematic landscape. The legacy of Dre Parker and Mr. Han is a testament to the power of process-oriented growth and the enduring appeal of the underdog who is willing to put the jacket on and take it off for the world. Our analytical journey through the legacy of this enterprise proves that in the business of cinema, the batasse of longevity is the commitment to quality over trends. The film's projected revenue was high at the start, but its actualized value over the last decade and a half has been monumental, securing its place as a definitive masterclass in the intersection of Xining, Technologia, at Capital. We are now ready for the final step of our journey, the 13th step, where we synthesize all our findings into a final conclusion, celebrating the harmony that made this 2010 remake a lasting beacon of martial arts and cinematic excellence. This final audit will bring our 140-minute deep dive to its ultimate resolution, providing a final emotional and analytical ROI for our masterclass participants. The final return is just around the corner, and it's time to see the big picture of this high-stakes global success. As the final echoes of the tournament buzzer fade into the high RPM silence of the credits, we reach the ultimate resolution of our 140-minute masterclass. To decode The Karate Kid, 2010, is to witness a rare and perfect alignment in the cinematic firmament, the state of art-tech capital harmony. This $40 million production enterprise began as a calculated gamble on the resilience of a legacy brand, and it concludes as a definitive proof of concept for the competency-driven global blockbuster. We have analyzed every dollar of the initial capital exposure, every variable of the kung fu biomechanics, and every psychological layer of the individual versus the cultural machine. The result is not merely a film that achieved its break-even logic, but a durable cultural asset that continues to provide emotional and financial dividends to this day. In this final audit, we synthesize the lessons of Dre Parker's journey, recognizing that the true batasse or law of modern cinema is the disciplined integration of high-end technology with a sophisticated understanding of globalized human psychology. We begin our final synthesis by re-evaluating the financial foundation of this enterprise. The $40 million investment was not just spent, it was strategically allocated to ensure a high level of genre prestige. By prioritizing technical accuracy over Hollywood shortcuts, Sony and Overbrook Entertainment created a reference-quality asset that defied the typical depreciation of summer remakes. The film's ROI is found in its long-tail resilience, where its status as a documentary-adjacent study of martial arts discipline has secured its CPM and market value across nearly 2 decades of digital syndication. We must interpret the studio's success as a triumph of risk management. They identified a global demographic hungry for technical truth and delivered a product with a perfect product-market fit. This financial discipline is what allowed the film to transcend its initial theatrical window and become a permanent fixture in the global media landscape, proving that a well-managed budget is the most powerful weapon in a filmmaker's arsenal. From a technological perspective, The Karate Kid stands as a monument to the power of precision. the integration of real-world wushu into the fabric of the cinematography was not just an aesthetic choice, but a masterstroke of visual engineering. We have decoded the physics of the training, where variables like muscle memory and neural pathway development were treated with the respect usually reserved for scientific journals. By utilizing high-end camera systems and 35mm film to capture these details, the filmmakers created a tactical aesthetic that resonates with the audience's own search for authenticity. The film's accuracy ROI is immense. It established a new industry standard for the portrayal of the martial artist, proving that the audience values the hard truth of discipline over the easy lie of CGI. This commitment to technical excellence is the engine that drives the film's enduring cultural capital, making it an education-friendly resource for generations of young practitioners. The psychological dividend of this masterclass is found in our decoding of the competency archetype. Dre Parker is the ultimate expression of individual proficiency in an era of displacement and institutional pressure. His psychology, defined by isolation, hypervigilance, and a relentless commitment to technical integrity, provides a profound emotional ROI for an audience that feels increasingly alienated by the high-pressure markets of modern life. We analyze his victory not as a triumph of brute force, but as a triumph of analytical depth. By being more disciplined than the machine that tried to break him, Dre offers a blueprint for leadership, stress management, and individual empowerment. The film's emotional product-market fit is perfect for a global audience seeking heroes who can master the batas of a new culture through humility and hard work. This psychological resonance is the secret sauce that ensures the film's brand equity remains high, even as the global landscape continues to shift. As we explore the operational machinery of the production itself, we recognize that the film was a masterclass in production management and efficiency. The time equals capital philosophy governed every logistical decision, from the high-altitude shooting in Wudong to the sophisticated multi-unit coordination in the Forbidden City. The filmmakers decoded the variables of geography and bureaucracy with the same precision Mr. Han applies to a fire cupping session, ensuring that every dollar of the budget appeared on screen with devastating visual and auditory clarity. This operational excellence is a form of brand protection. It ensures that the film never feels cheap or rushed, maintaining its prestige across all distribution formats. The synergy between the Hollywood management style and the local Chinese expertise created a synergy ROI that is rare in the high-pressure environment of global co-productions, resulting in a durable asset that remains a benchmark for the industry. Here is the final performance audit for The Karate Kid 2010. First, the initial capital exposure was approximately $40 million. This secured high production value and cultural integrity. Second, the product market fit was targeted at the global martial arts and family market. This captured a high RPM global demographic. Third, the technical accuracy utilized real-world wushu physics. This established an industry standard for martial arts realism. Fourth, the star power ROI was anchored by Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith. This provided a financial anchor and emotional trust equity. Fifth, the long-tail valuation has remained evergreen for over 16 years. This resulted in high digital CPM and global syndication rights. Finally, the legacy status is the batas of the remake. It is now a permanent piece of cultural capital in the action genre. The marketing strategy and audience analytics we decoded proved that a sophisticated, data-driven approach to promotion is essential for the success of a high-stakes enterprise. By targeting the legacy segment and the next-gen demographic, the marketing team mitigated investor risk and secured a strong market position. The film's technical hook, the jacket on and jacket off sequence, was a masterpiece of CPM-driven advertising, proving that authenticity and process innovation are the ultimate marketing assets in a cluttered media landscape. We must interpret the film's global success as a result of its universal archetypes, the lone hero, the weary mentor, and the mathematical truth of the discipline. These elements translate across all cultural boundaries, ensuring a high level of international ROI and a durable presence in the global media marketplace. The film's transition to the home entertainment market in 2010 was the final piece of the break-even logic, turning a theatrical release into a reference-quality asset that fans continue to buy and stream today. In the final analysis, The Karate Kid 2010 is a testament to the harmony of the process. Every variable, financial, technical, and artistic, was calculated to achieve a specific emotional and analytical outcome. The film decodes the relationship between the individual and the world, showing that while capital can buy dojos and influence, it cannot defeat the scientific certainty of a student who has mastered the batas of self-control. This is the ultimate law of our masterclass, that truth is the ultimate ROI. Whether it is the truth of the wushu, the truth of the budget, or the truth of the human heart, it is the pursuit of this accuracy that gives a film its lasting power. We conclude this deep dive with the understanding that this movie is not just an underdog story, it is a clinical study in the resilience of human competency and the enduring beauty of a well-executed plan. It is a masterclass in the business and beauty of modern cinema, where the gears of reality and the dreams of art grind together to produce a spark of cinematic excellence. As we close the file on this $40 million global audit, we reflect on the imagery of the jacket on the peg one last time. It is a symbol that does not merely represent a chore, but focuses the entire universe of art, tech, and capital into a single, crystalline point of discipline. Harold Zwart, Jackie Chan, Jaden Smith, and the entire production team operated with the same technical integrity as Mr. Han himself, delivering an asset that remains as sharp and inspiring today as it was in 2010. This 140-minute journey from Detroit to the peak of Wudong has been more than just a review, it has been a decoding of the very soul of the martial arts genre. We have witnessed the perfect synthesis of storytelling and science, providing a high level of emotional and analytical ROI for everyone who has joined us in this masterclass. Thank you for embarking on this deep dive with me here at Stream Mechanics. We have audited the budget, analyzed the biomechanics, and explored the psychology of power and individual resilience. If you found this 13-step autopsy of the Karate Kid 2010 enlightening, my literature-loving and technical-minded friends, consider this a permanent part of your personal educational library. We have proven that the real badass of the film industry is the harmony of all its moving parts. Until we meet again to decode the next high-stakes enterprise, remember that in cinema, as in life, accuracy is the only variable you can truly control. Keep your zeros tight, your calculations precise, and your vision unwavering. The jacket is off, the tournament is won, and the audit is complete.